the truth is the longer you wait, the more work you'll have to do later to get yourself out of a pickle. Whether it's like, oh my God, now I have arthritis from disuse, or I have like chronic pain because I don't have core stability and my spine is screaming for help. Hello and welcome back to the Weaponized Body Podcast. My name is Dr. Ryan Hewitt. I'm your host. And today we're going to talk about our ladies. Last week we did a podcast on fitness over 40 for men. And we're going to talk about our benchmarks for fitness over 40 for our ladies. So strong is the new sexy is the theme of this podcast. I think that what women are now realizing more than ever is that building muscle is the best possible insurance policy that you could possibly have for your metabolic health, your physical health, your bone density, your hormones, and everything. It is by far one of the most important things that you must focus on in order to have optimal performance, health, and recovery as you age. 40 seems to be the magic number that a lot of people tend to start falling apart. In my practice, I see a lot of what I call the squeeze generation. I see a lot of women that come in for ailments and problems that they have because what has happened is they've given all of themselves to their children and their family, and they have neglected to take care of themselves. And what has happened is now they're in this tough spot where they've given all of their energy and time to their family, their immediate family, and then all of a sudden their parents' health starts to fail and they step in and have to start taking care of their parents. And what happens is in this squeeze generation, the parent here starts taking care, or the mom starts taking care of the parent and is now not needing to take care of their family with such intensity. And they shift that energy to now taking care of their parents. And then what happens is they continue to neglect their health, and eventually their health fails and their children have to step in. And this vicious cycle of, health issues that happens due to neglect of taking care of their metabolic, physical, mental, emotional health. And one of the incredibly important factors of making sure that you age gracefully, that you continue to be able to be functional, healthy, active lifestyle that you want to live with your spouse or your children, etc. And you want to have great energy, sex drive, everything, is that you must stay strong. You must really prioritize your physical health, especially strength. So with these fitness standards, a lot of them are strength oriented, but there's also mobility. There's also fitness and VO2 max. They are the same exact movements, the same 12 movements as the men, but obviously the standards are different. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about women and how their best years are not necessarily behind them, that there is plenty of opportunity here to get better, get stronger. I think a lot of women get this watered down version of what they consider to be healthy. A healthy woman is strong, is metabolically fit. There's nobody that stays optimally strong, fit, and healthy in their lifetime that doesn't work out. Okay. Walking is not cutting it. Doing, one yoga class a week is not cutting it. So walk more, eat less, stay active. Like that's not good enough in order to be robustly healthy. So it's much harder as you get older to make sure that you're maintaining muscle mass, that you are, staying metabolically healthy. So it really, really is an important focus. So what I'm going to do today is talk about measurable standards that you can shoot for. Things that over the course of 18 years of clinical practice, I checked these standards with my wife. Granted, I am not a female, so I'm coming from the male perspective, but coming from a place of science, of, clinical experience, common sense. And, I've also talked to a few people about these standards. So let's get something straight. The standards are not about comparison, however, they're about factual clarity. and to make sure they give you a direction and something to chase. For women over 40, the targets, they matter very much so, because what happens is you lose muscle at 1% per year after the age of 40. Bone density tends to drop at the same rate. Your recovery takes longer, your hormones shift, perimenopausal stuff starts to happen, sleep becomes unpredictable. And what happens is, and I tell people this almost on a weekly basis, is that your margin for error essentially gets smaller. You don't have as much wiggle room as you get older in order to, to make sure that you're doing the right stuff. So in a lot of cases, for most women, you're not broken. In a lot of cases, you're just undertrained, right? Because muscle is your armor. It's your metabolic insurance policy, is the way I like to put it. It's kind of like compounding interest. The more consistency you put towards strength training, the more metabolic protection you'll have for life. And, the more bulletproof you'll be. So what I'm going to do is break down the benchmarks. We're going to go through the same dozen that we did for the guys last week. So the standard is the minimum target to make sure that you're staying optimally healthy and strong and resilient, making sure that you're preventing things like fractures and injuries and fall risks, and making sure that you stay optimally healthy when it comes to your energy and your sex drive. Just basically every possible thing that matters to most people when it comes to living good quality of life. Now, we're going to start off with pull-ups. So upper body strength. There is no really better measure of great upper body strength than a pull-up. You're testing your grip strength. You're testing your back strength, of course, like your ability to pull your body weight. Getting yourself over an object, being able to pull, with healthy shoulders, building upper body power. So I have the standard here as one unassisted pull-up. This is something that I think is very important to be able to do. A lot of people might disagree here. There's actually a very small percentage of women over 40 who can actually do a strict pull-up. I don't think there's any research that shows how many exactly, but you'll read anywhere from less than 10% to less than 5%. Which I believe it's one of those things that it's very hard to do. One thing that's true is men have more robust upper body strength. Women tend to have more robust lower body strength, for evolutionary reasons and whatnot. So it is really important for women to train their upper body and to be able to attain a strict pull-up. So it is difficult for a lot of people, whether it's upper body strength oriented or body weight oriented or whatnot. So it's one of those things where it's important to start with training, vertical pulling. You can do that with a lot of different variations of strength work, using assisted pull-up bands as well. But I think the standard is one strict pull-up. I have a weaponized standard for every category here too, and that would be 5+ strict pull-ups. That means if you can do over 5 bodyweight strict pull-ups as a woman, I mean, you're a beast. So that's a great standard to shoot for. Push-ups. Push-up is another upper body weight variation. Okay, it's like a horizontal press. So I have the standard as 5 from your toes. Okay, not from your knees, but from your toes. And I see a lot of people in general, but especially women, that try to go really wide with their arms, blow up their shoulders. So we're just going hands beside nipples, essentially thumbs to each side of your armpit, and pressing your body weight from the floor all the way down to your chest, full reps, 5 strict reps. And I think that's a pretty solid standard. As far as a weaponized standard, if you can do 15 push-ups as a woman, that's significant. And, that is all about core strength, shoulder and tricep strength. And I think it's incredibly important for healthy posture, making sure you're minimizing pain, back pain, keeps your upper body lean, functional, etc. So I love push-ups as far as a fitness standard. Let's get into trap bar deadlifts. Now, again, I picked the trap bar because it is a safer variation than a barbell deadlift, for example. You don't need barbells in order to have great fitness. In fact, a lot of people would argue that having barbells in your training is unnecessary and can puts you at a higher injury risk. However, I like the trap bar because it is a variation. You can grip with a neutral grip from, just off the floor, and maintain more of an upright torso to protect your back. For a woman to be able to do your body weight 5 times with a trap bar should be the standard. Okay. This is like, it's the deadlift is a paradox. It's literally like the health lift. So it is something that if you could pick up your body weight off the floor 5 times, you're in good shape. It strengthens your spine, your hips, which increases your bone density, protects you against all sorts of ailments. You want to prevent osteoporosis, like this is the way to do it. So learn to lift. In this version, you can do this with dumbbells. You could do this with a trap bar, but being able to do your body weight 5 times. My weaponized standard would be 1.5 times your body weight. So if you're a 100-pound female, being able to pick up 150 pounds off the floor 5 times is the standard. Okay, now we're going to get into back squat. So I included the back squat with both men and women variations. I really am a strong believer that there should be, a pull from the floor, in a hinge pattern, and also a squatting variation. So, I'm going to catch heat from people saying like, oh, you don't need to back squat. Loading your spine is dangerous. Like, yeah, well, loading your spine is dangerous if your technique is flawed. If you have, if you're prone to injury, etc. There are different squatting variations you can do that aren't barbell back squats. There's, if you go to a traditional Globo gym, there are squatting variations like hack squats. You can do unloaded spine movements like hip belt squat, leg presses, etc. So there are squatting variations that don't involve a back squat, but just for the sake of having 12 standards, the squatting standard, we're going to have a back squat. And for women, like 3/4 of your body weight, be able to back squat that 5 times indicates that you have good hip and leg strength that keeps you independent, prevention of falls and hip fractures, etc. Like if you're putting in the work now, you're going to be a pretty fit grandma at like 65. So squat now and walk later. So weaponized standard would be 1.25 times your body weight. So if you're a 100-pound female, being able to back squat your body weight 100 pounds 5 times, or a weaponized standard would be 125 pounds 5 times. You can do the math. Of course, there's not many women who are 100 pounds over 40. You'd be a pretty small person, but you can do the math. All right, now we're going to get into more of a VO2 max test. So more of like an aerobic fitness test. So the mile run. So for a mile run, I have the standard here of sub 12 minutes, which is not a terribly fast pace. But it is, a mile is 1,600 meters. It's enough where you need to be trained with a relatively decent VO2 max to be able to accomplish that. Weaponized, I have my weaponized standard as sub 9 minutes for women. We talked about VO2 max and the importance of it. You listen to any longevity experts, they're going to say that VO2 max is possibly the number one predictor of how long you're going to live, your lifespan, and how important it is for your mitochondrial health, your aerobic capacity, just overall your body's ability to stay insulin sensitive. If you can handle this short burst of like 1 mile run at that intensity, you're going to have decent VO2 max. For women, sub 12 minutes, weaponized standard sub 9 minutes. All right. Now the sit to stand test, this standard stays the same across the board for both men and women. The sit to stand test is interesting. It does require hip mobility. It does require some ability to like lean into your joints, like your ankles. You need to have a healthy low back, core strength. You need to have, somewhat of a good ankle mobility, as well as knee health, hip health, etc. So this is a difficult standard, by the way, and it's same thing for the standard or the weaponized version. If you can get off the floor unassisted in one smooth motion, there's research out there that shows that you're a 0.0 fall risk. Being able to do this smoothly and controlled. If you do this with shoes, we could call that the standard. A weaponized standard would be able to do this barefoot, but being able to like Get yourself off the floor without bracing your hands on the floor. Um, Again, it's a balance test, it's a flexibility test, it's a joint health test, it's a fall predictor test. And go ahead and try this. And this is a just complete disaster for you, you got some work to do. All right. My wife and I are actually going to do this test together. Both of us, we're going to show that we live what we lead. And I joked with her, I was like, yeah, this test is going to be tough for you. Her hips are not the most mobile. I can do this. This is something that is important to me to be able to maintain mobility. I do prioritize a ton of strength training, but making sure my mobility stays robust. And despite all my joint destruction that I've had, like my ankles and my knees, I can still do this with relative ease. So there'll be videos coming out about these tests. We're going to put out ours within the next couple of weeks, and you'll see. If you look this up, sit to stand test, there's a lot of people out there that have demonstrated this, and they show that it does. There's research that correlates, clearly if you can do this with ease, you're pretty mobile and fit. Another mobility stability test I included in my standards is the overhead squat test. I have not done overhead squats in a long time. I hope I can still do them. I haven't trained these in a while, but I used to be pretty good at this. I have good shoulder mobility. My wrists, however, are pretty banged up from being a chiropractor and doing competitive CrossFit for over 10 years. An overhead squat test would be, simply to hold an object. If you want it to be a barbell, that's basically what we're going to talk about here. Holding a barbell overhead, or a 15-pound object, like a 15-pound training bar. Be able to do that with 5 controlled reps for women. That's the standard. Again, this is a mobility stability test. You have to have relatively good ankle mobility, knee health, core strength, shoulder mobility, thoracic mobility, spine stability, scap stability, wrist health, etc. Now, the weaponized standard for women would be half your body weight for 5 reps. So once again, if this is a 100-pound female, so being able to hold 50 pounds over your head with a barbell, and be able to do that 5 times, to parallel. So be able to squat down to parallel and standing up all the way at full extension. And again, this is just like a full body mobility screen. So this is definitely something to do in order to really expose some of your challenges, which may be mobility oriented, stability oriented, strength oriented, etc. Okay, now for a little bit of explosive training, the broad jump. So one of the other things you'll hear longevity experts speak about, one is grip strength, another is VO2 max, and another is type 2 fiber development, which is more your explosive or your plyometric abilities. So being able to like explosively jump or sprint. So for women, the standard for the broad jump would be 80% of your height. So if you're if you're a woman who's 5 feet tall, so 80% of that would be 4 feet. So 80% of your height to be able to broad jump, that's pretty solid. Weaponized would be equal to your body height. So if you're like a 5-foot female, if you can broad jump 5 feet, it's pretty awesome. So explosive power is tied to like your neurological health as well. So those type 2 fibers, your neurological health, and also your ability to like stop and start quickly. It's one of the things that is the first to go as you age. But here's the thing is like, how many people over 40 do you know train this? How many people over 40 do you know that sprint routinely or jump routinely? Unless you participate in a sport that requires some of that explosive training, like basketball, volleyball, short bursts of sprinting, soccer, or if you sprint just because you want to maintain those, explosive abilities. Yeah, it's one of those things that does decline quickly with age, but it's also very few people train this with age too. They slow down, they walk, maybe go to the gym, lift, but very few people are doing these like plyometric explosive movements. And it's really, really important, especially it's the number one predictor of a fall risk is your ability to have that quick twitch catch to be able to catch your body weight. Like you step off a curb. I mean, everyone's had this experience. You miss the last step. You know, in a lot of cases, if you don't have great reflexive stability and these type 2 fibers to be able to catch your body weight, yeah, you're going to blow out your ankle, or you tear a knee, tear a quad. So this is really important for making sure you mitigate injury risk. Now for a little bit of a core endurance test, the plank hold. The standard for a plank hold for women is 60 seconds. Okay. This one's a pretty low bar in my opinion, but I think a lot of people, when I see them do planks, they look like garbage. You have to make sure like your nose to toes tensioned. So in other words, so this is from your elbows, right? So your elbows on the floor, you're pressed through your elbows. All right. So you have your lats activated. Your butt is squeezed. So your spine is stable and your quads are squeezed. So you should feel full body tension. So I see a lot of people that they tent their butt up in the air or they sag their spine to the floor. You want to make sure your nose to toes tight for 60 seconds. That's the standard. The weaponized standard for women is 90 seconds. Okay. So core endurance protects your spine. Yeah, I mean, your abs are part of it, but we're talking abs, transversus abdominis, obliques, your paraspinals, all your little intrinsic muscles of your spine, your glutes, your adductors, all of your stabilizers of your pelvis. We're really testing that endurance. Very, very important. Now, the other core endurance test in our weaponized fitness standards is something called the Sorensen hold test. You may not have heard of this test. This test is actually a really great test with some solid research behind it. If you find like a glute ham raise developer, so it's one of those things where you hook your feet in and your torso kind of folds over a pad. What you want to do is be able to hold your torso in, parallel to the floor. So it is an endurance test for your posterior chain. So like your calves, your hamstrings, your glutes, and of course, like everything around your corset. So your abs and your lower back. The standard would be for you to be able to hold this for 90 seconds, actually. So this is a really good test. If you haven't tried it before, try it. It's eye-opening for a lot of people. 2 minutes is the weaponized standard for women. This is like if you have good, not just low back strength, but low back endurance, it's a really strong indicator of like how safe you are as a lifter, especially if you're continuing to do things like deadlifts and single straight-legged deadlifts, single leg movements. Yeah, if you're in pain with this test too, by the way, make sure you get checked out. Find a really great chiropractor. Get a good movement screening test. These 12 tests are really great ways to expose some of the ways you've been training, possibly. All right. The last and final test in our dozen is the farmer's carry. So I spoke a little bit about grip strength. So we see tests of grip strength, like be able to dead hang hold for a minute or two, which is fine. Again, like I didn't want to put too many things in here that would exclude people. Like if you're someone who is a big person, if you have a lot of body weight, yeah, hanging is going to be really hard. Doing a strict pull-up is going to be really hard. So I didn't want to put two of these in here like this. So I chose a farmer carry because here's the challenge: is you're going to need to carry 50% of your body weight in each hand. So in other words, you're a 100-pound female, you're carrying 50% of your body weight. So 25-pound dumbbells in each hand, and you're going to do that for a 100-foot walk. So if you don't know what 100 feet is, measure that out. Yeah, I mean, a lot of gyms have turfs and areas you can walk. So just measure it out so you know how many feet you're going. A weaponized standard would be to hold your body weight total. So you're a 100-pound person. So that'd be 50-pound dumbbells in each hand as a woman, a 100-pound woman for 200 feet. This is grip. This is posture. This is, breathing with your core braced. This is real world strength. This is like farmer carry stuff, like farm strong. So it's, you could think about real world situations where you need that, like carrying groceries, carrying your children, hauling luggage, during your travels. This is really, really important stuff. So those are the fitness standards. They're the same movements as I chose for men as we did for the women. And again, these numbers aren't about ego. So this is about knowing where you are factually and having standards to shoot for. And if you find there's some exposure in some of those standards, to be able to round up some of your fitness, and we're talking like, whether it's your aerobic fitness or your mobility or some of your agility or explosive power, start programming those things in. I'm a huge proponent of finding a really great trainer. If you're unfamiliar with some of these movements, be able to have a trainer assess you properly, find out where we can shore up some of your weaknesses in order to make you more bulletproof, right? More resilient. I love that word resilient. It's just like, can you put up with the stressors of life and be able to have a long, healthy quality of life where you're pain free, where you're functional, where you could go on like a 10-mile hike without even batting an eye, be able to grab your grandchild or, um, you know, be able to just pick up some weight off the floor and move with it. So being able to, stealing something from CrossFit, move large loads over long distances. So that's really important. It's very applicable to life. So here's the thing. Here's what I hear a lot in my practice, especially from my women I take care of, is I'm too old to start. There couldn't be a more bullshit statement. Um, this is like this is a poorly informed excuse, is what it is. The truth is, the longer you wait, the more work you'll have to do later to get yourself out of a pickle. Whether it's like, oh my God, now I have arthritis from disuse, or I have like chronic pain because I don't have core stability and my spine is screaming for help. Yeah, you'll pay for it later. I promise you. How many people do you know that are in nursing homes, because of the deterioration of their body from disuse? The homes are full of them. Even people that have riddled injuries from misuse, there's certainly a lot of training and rehab and things like that you can do to make sure that you're aiming for functionality and to be pain free. Now, here's an all too common saying that I hear from women is, I don't want to get too bulky. And this is the dumbest lie that has ever been sold to women. I don't know where this came from. If this was like when the bodybuilding scene kind of hit mainstream with women, they saw, or with women that compete in the CrossFit games, that literally as their profession, they are training 2-3 times a day and making it their full-time job to, build muscle. It's like, listen, I don't think you really understand what it takes to actually become bulky. Like, I've been working on getting bulky for 30 years. And that's not going so good for me. Um, yeah, it is one of those things that it's very, very difficult to actually make yourself look like you're a power lifter. Um, like, listen, metabolically active tissue is what muscle is. When you put on muscle, you're going to have that desirable look that you want. Okay. When you lean out and actually lose body fat, what happens is your body, it naturally starts to look like that figure that you're more desiring. You're not going to all of a sudden look manly. I promise you. You're going to look leaner. You're going to look stronger. You're going to feel more alive. There is literally like, no negative to including strength training in your week. It is one of those things that it's a must. It's a vital nutrient, I believe, when it comes to physical health. Um, I hear the all too often, not that like I don't want to get bulky, not that I'm too old, is just like, I've never lifted weights before and I don't know what to do. So here's the exciting part. If you're someone who has never lifted weights before, like, this is where the most exciting gains happen. Like, I wish I was still a novice lifter. The gains that you're going to make are going to be so incredibly motivating and reinforcing. You're going to get stronger so quickly because your body responds to that so quickly. Most women over 40 who have never been shown what real strength training looks like once you start to do it and see the results, you'll never look back. I promise you. It's gonna be one of those things that, like, if you're doing it properly, you're avoiding injury. It's exciting. It is so much fun. So if you're ready to step into this next version of yourself, like, here's what I recommend. Um, training strength at least 3 days a week. That seems to be the magic number where there's progress possible. Like anything less, it's really difficult to see progress. It takes a lot longer. 3 to 4 strength training sessions a week when you're doing like full body stuff. So you're doing upper body and lower body. And you're also including some conditioning sessions, right? So whether that's like high intensity interval workouts, um, and that doesn't have to involve what looks like CrossFit, for example. It could look like you're doing stuff with dumbbells, you're doing stuff with sleds or kettlebells, you're doing like uh, treadmill sprints or bike sprints, burpees, whatever that looks like. So my advice is always to just start with what you have. Most people, the barrier of entry is so low these days. Like you can literally on Amazon order a kettlebell, one set of dumbbells, some bands, and a bench. And wow, you could put together an incredible program just with those simple items. And my strongest advice, though, is if you've never done it before and you don't know what to do and you're intimidated, hire a trainer. Hire a personal trainer, invest in yourself. They will give you the confidence and they will put you in the right path in order to make sure you're avoiding injury, that you're seeing progress, that you're getting more comfortable with the movements, that if you stepped into a gym down the line, that you would know what to do. Um, that's definitely something I'm a strong advocate of, and making sure that you're prioritizing your recovery. Every episode, I feel like I talk about the 5 levers, making sure you're strength training, eating enough protein, sleeping properly, like 7+ hours a night, drinking enough water, managing your stress. If you do this on repeat, you're going to see gains. What I want you to take away is you're not fragile, right? You're not too old. You're not going to get bulky. You're not stuck. You're meant to be powerful, strong, like even after decades, right? So strong is the new standard, I feel like these days. So if this hits home for you, do me a favor, share it with another woman who needs to hear this. Tag me, the weaponized body, or the weaponized dad on Instagram. Tell me what standards you're chasing. If you're looking for like coaching, guidance, accountability, shoot me a message. As always, I appreciate you guys listening. And please make sure that you tune in weekly. And I appreciate all your feedback. Remember, until next time, train hard, recover smart, stay weaponized.